listening to Jai Long, and this is Make Your Break. Whether you're a big-hearted creative or an aspiring entrepreneur, let's take action on your dreams, reconnecting you with your why and giving you the how. I'm here to dish out actionable mindset tips and fun industry secrets to help you blow up your biz. From eye-opening reality checks to motivational gold, no two episodes are ever the same. So tune in weekly, skip the FOMO, and let's dive into the deep together. Hey, so I'm here with Jensen. I actually met when did I meet you actually? Must be like 3 years ago.
I think it was at the Ultra Electric launch party a few years back was the first time. But I already knew who you were because I've been following Heartbreak Hotel for a while and your work.
Oh, cool. That's awesome. Yeah, so it's probably about 3 years ago or something. And I think for those who don't know who you are, you're a wedding photographer here in Melbourne. You have a very unique style. And I'm excited to have you on the podcast today because we're going to talk about your style and what it's like to sort of have the courage to stand out, do something a little bit different and lean into your own sort of superpowers and things like that. So, hey, how are you?
I'm really good. Thanks for having me on. How are you, Jai?
I'm very, very well. So tell me, do you actually listen to my podcast?
I do listen to your podcast. I love your podcast. It's helped me a lot. It's definitely inspired me a lot of time. I mean, we've already spoken about it, but Love Cat's Wedding Expo was inspired by your podcast, and that really helped me out and kind of saved my career for a little bit. So it was very handy. It's a great podcast. Everyone should listen.
Yeah. So that's actually really interesting because I remember you reached out to me and you were talking about the expo that you put on, and obviously, unfortunately, you kind of timed it a little bit wrong with COVID.
I really did.
And,
yeah,
that just didn't sort of work out. And but yeah, tell me, like, how has sort of business for the last 12 months been for you, being in lockdown? And
it's been really, really tough. It has been. I mean, the expo had to be postponed the first time, and then I put it on again, and it had to be postponed the second time. So also just elopements. I mean, it's probably handy shooting elopements because when we can open up a little bit, they're one of the first kind of weddings that can happen. So it's been good in that way, but it's also really kind of given me time to think about what I want to do and how I want to focus my wedding photography and to be able to niche down and work out how to go about doing that and how to change. I think it's probably been really good for a lot of people. It's given us time to clarify things and kind of reprioritize our lives in a little bit of a way.
Totally. It's been pretty crazy, hey? And you're in Melbourne, just like me. It's been a longest lockdown ever.
Yeah.
Do you find like with these lockdowns, right? And you said something to me just before this episode of like, Jai, you're so busy and it seems like lockdown hasn't really stopped you.
Yeah.
Do you think like some people have kind of just put on the brakes and stopped and others kind of just kept going?
Totally. Some people have really leaned into it, and I've seen so many people making really killer work and having time finally to be able to make personal work that they haven't had before. I know I have really struggled with it, and I've not been anywhere near as productive as I'd like to have been. I think it's a choice thing. And then I think once it drags out long enough, I mean, it's been over a year here now, and it's just like your mindset is pretty locked in by that point. And I'm trying to get back and pick up the pace of how I was doing things before and how much energy I had before. But I think because it's been a year of not doing too much and not having much inspiration and feeling unmotivated, it's really hard now to get back into it. So I think it's really good that you've just consistently pushed through.
Yeah, I don't think I kind of gave myself a choice. And to be honest, like it hasn't changed my world because nothing really changes. It's just like, go to work, do my thing, make some content, create something.
But it's hard because you can't do the work. I mean, there's so much other stuff you can do, like all of the business side of stuff and the accounting and, all of the background things. But the actual shooting is what drives me so much. And I found it really hard not having that as part of my day to day. And without that, it's like, then it is all just business. And that's not my strong point. I just love taking the photos. So it's been a bit of a drainer. Yeah.
I totally get that, man. And especially like now that you have like created this expo that is kind of just came at the wrong time. And it's like, man, it's something that like, you like create an idea and then you go out there and you want to do something incredible. And then it just all comes to a stop.
Totally. Yeah, it's really, really hard. And you just get so, I guess, disenchanted with doing anything. I mean, it's so much work, the expo, and every time it has to be postponed or anything that changes is so much more work than anyone realizes. And it's just really, really tiring trying to stay motivated and inspired to keep doing it and keep pushing through. And I think I've let that get to me a little bit too much, maybe.
Totally. Hey, so today let's talk about niching down. Let's talk about having the courage of standing out. I think it's one of those really interesting things that people hate, niching or niching, however you want to pronounce it, wherever you are in the world. People kind of hate doing it because they believe that they're not targeting everyone, so they're leaving money on the table by
For
not
sure.
serving everybody. And it's actually a really hard limiting belief to get people through, to make them realize that, like, the more niche that you are, the more that you can make a bigger impact, make more income, you can speak directly to your exact audience and all those things. So how's it been for you, niching down and being different to everybody else?
I think I definitely started in that point when I started shooting weddings and I had is it scarcity mindset, where I was constantly worried that there wasn't enough work for everyone. Actually, I remember listening to one of your podcasts and he said something like, there's how many is it, like how many weddings in Melbourne on a regular weekend when it's not lockdown times? There were like hundreds of thousands, and there's so much work, and it's so true. And I just became really tired and uninspired shooting weddings. It's just, I really respect people who can do that, and I love wedding photography, but it was just not my vibe. And the little elopements I was getting booked to shoot occasionally, I found just like fueled my creativity. Like I was just like so much more inspired and so much happier to be doing it and so much more present. And so I decided that I was going to focus on that. And then from there, I've really, really niched down. So now I'm just shooting elopements with 20 people or less, and I'm only shooting 2 hours, and it's all on film. So it's like the couples get 50 film photos and that's it. So it's quite different to a lot of what's going on in the industry. I think I'm probably the only person I know of in Victoria, at least, doing that. And it's been great. I haven't worked than ever, because the kind of couples that I'm going for, I've really done a lot of market research and worked out exactly the kind of thing they want. So it's at a price point where people who aren't having a massive wedding, are just having a little elopement and want to celebrate in the park or in their backyard, they probably don't have an insanely high price point. And just working out things like that, making sure that it's all aligned so that the couples that are looking for me, I'm within reach, I'm within the price point, I'm in the right places market wise, and it's been terrific. I think this summer is going to be very busy for
I
everyone really in the
love
wedding
that.
industry.
Mm. So let's just give our listeners some practical tips with that. It sounds like you did a lot of market research and things like that. So if I was going to niche down and get myself into, my perfect small target audience, like, what kind of practical steps would I take to start off with?
I think the first thing is doing a lot of research. I know a lot of my friends and a lot of my couples, from having worked with them before, the kind of elopements that they have and the price point that they have and the locality around Melbourne, and their interests. And I think really focusing on those things and doing as much market research as you can so that you can target your ads and make sure that you're speaking to those people. Because I mean, my entire website is not a very professional kind of really fancy wedding photography website. It's all very casual and laid back and chill. And that's the vibe of these people looking for these elopements. So it's worked out really well. I also chose to focus on film, because a lot of the couples that I'm shooting know about film. They maybe are in the arts, and they just want really small little packages because they're just not into big traditional weddings or church weddings or anything. So yeah, I think market research is the first step, and that's so important. Making sure you're communicating in the same language as your customers. So I don't use a
Awesome.
lot of kind of really wedding-y words in the way I communicate, because these people are having unwedding weddings, like they're going to be turned off if I'm saying all of these kind of really traditional phrases that the wedding industry use. Yeah, that's really helped me.
That's really cool. Like, let's dive into that a little bit deeper. So
Yeah.
you know that your language needs, and like in language and messaging needs to go and land at those right people. And you can do that through building a story of your website, through your work, through the way that you interact with them, social media and stuff. But so if you're niching down to that such a small audience, how do you know that they are willing to pay for your services, or that a market actually exists for what you do?
I think it's all trial and error, really. I think it's testing it. When I first started doing it, I had a really low price point, which is where it actually is sitting now. It's $1,000 for a 2-hour session. And that was basically to see if there was people who were willing to pay for it and actually wanted the service. And I kind of knew that there was already, because I'd had a lot of elopement bookings that were these kind of people. And we're looking for something even simpler. You know, I had 5-hour packages and they'd say, can you do something shorter, because we don't even want that much. And they wanted less photos. So I trialed it, and then that's where I'm at now. And it's just been really, really good. So I know that I can put my prices up a little bit and change some things, knowing there's an audience there. But there's no really, I mean, you can kind of hypothesize it as much as you like, but until you actually put it out there and see what the response is, there's just no way of knowing if people are going to want it or not.
Okay, here's the thing for you, because I know so many people get stuck on like the fear of failure, because they think once they try something and if no one books, then they've kind of failed. Like, do you believe that it's something that's, like you said before, trial and error, where it's a continuum? So it's like, hey, it might not work today, but it might work tomorrow, and maybe my messaging needs to change, maybe my offer, maybe my like whatever it is, but you know that you can get there, you can get to that audience that you're trying to, or build that business that you really want to build.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you just start with somewhere that's a middle ground that seems safe. It's still not safe because you're still trialing it. And then you can tweak things from there, and people are going to be willing to pay slightly more, or if you're offering something slightly different. I mean, originally I didn't start just shooting film, but then I was like, no, I'm going to try that next. And just do it step by step, trial one thing at a time and see what works. But yeah, it does. I mean, also things come in and out of fashion. Film is really fashionable right now and everyone's into film photos. Hopefully it doesn't go out, because that would be a pain for me. But it's you're going to have good seasons and bad seasons, but you just have to test it out and see what happens, and just do it really gradually. I don't think doing something like doubling your price overnight is ever a good idea, or just deciding you're going to go from 12-hour weddings to only shooting an hour. But just little incremental tests is really handy, and that's really the only way you can see if it's going to work.
Do you think that it was like partly from you and your idea of what you wanted to do, or it's also partly from what the clients actually wanted? Like maybe someone asked you to shoot film once, maybe you shot a smaller wedding and you realized that this is where it's at. Maybe like from trial and error and all those things, it was like, hey, I can actually craft something and these people actually want what I have.
Yeah, it started very selfish, because I was like, I don't want to be on my feet for 8 hours shooting huge weddings and taking thousands of photos and having to edit them. And I also much prefer shooting film. So I knew that I really wanted to focus on that. So it started selfishly, and I put out an offering that was, I think it was a competition, and someone won 12 Polaroids for their elopement. And that's all I was going to take, nothing else. And I went to this elopement and I ended up pulling out my film camera as well, because it was so beautiful. It was at Lauderdale Gorge. And took some film photos. And afterwards, I think I had maybe 24 film photos and 12 Polaroids. And I was like, if I were getting married, this is all I would want. Like, this is, to me, the ideal. It's simple, it's easy. And it's just, film photos just look beautiful. And Polaroids are physical things you have that you can put in a frame. You don't have to worry about printing them. So I don't know. And the couple were like, we have so many friends that want to book this exact thing that you did for us, but you don't have a package for this. So I was like, okay, there's a need. I'll make a package for it. And then I slowly wound down the wedding photography until that became the only package that I offered. But yeah, it definitely originally started from a very selfish point of, well, how do I want my work to look, and what kind of weddings do I personally want to photograph? Because I'm not a big traditional wedding person. And so I kind of, really wanted to change things up a little bit if I were to go into wedding photography, which I do love.
I love that. So do you ever get a little bit scared that you won't have enough clients out there? Because I know most people that niche down usually think like, I understand that, Jai, but I don't want to limit myself to all the work because I'm afraid I'm not going to get enough of it.
Totally. I was really scared at the start when I started doing it. To be honest, I wasn't shooting a lot of weddings at that point. I was still really new. So it was kind of like, I can only go up from here. Like I don't have that many clients anyway. I think if you're at a midpoint in your career where you're doing pretty well and you've got a lot of clients and then you decide to switch everything up, that would be really daunting. But because I was still new, I had a lot of freedom to be able to choose what I wanted to do and to start from the bottom. And also I think because I am offering at a lower price point starting out, I kind of knew that there would be a decent amount of people who were looking for something that didn't have a huge budget. So sometimes I feel like maybe the elopement couples I get aren't, I mean, most of the time they are the exact kind of people and at the exact kind of job I want, but sometimes they're not. It's just that they're just like, well, you're cheap, which is not what you want to be ever. But knowing the clients that I'm shooting, I know that they have a lower price point. And so, yeah, it's really worked out. And like I said, I've had more bookings than ever and it's gotten really busy. So I don't know. I think, again, there might not be work for if your niche, if it's something really specific. You just have to check out what people are doing and what people want and speak to people that are having the kind of weddings that you want to shoot and see if there's a different kind of package that no one's offering that they want. Because there's a huge, I mean, the wedding industry is kind of, I love it, but it's remained unchanged for a really long time. You know, we're offering the same kind of packages we were offering in the 90s, except they were on film back then. And there's a lot of room for growth and for change and for niching down because everyone sees weddings in a completely different way than how we did in the 90s. So I think there's so much space for people to come in and come up with their own niche and try it out.
That's really cool. Hey, they used to shoot weddings in the 90s on film and you shoot weddings on film in the 2001s.
Yeah.
Hey, I just wanted to sort of just finish off this little bit of the conversation because I just know that there's so many people just like yourself from like 5 years ago that might have some fear around niching. Is there anything practical for you that you did to sort of overcome the fear? Was it just trial and error, like doing it until you proved that it worked? Was there a mentor that you reached out to? Was there friends that you talked to? Was it someone that gave you permission? So was there anything that sort of helped you overcome that fear?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one thing I would say is to talk to people in the industry, but to not always take their advice. I feel like I spoke to a lot of people and a lot of people said, don't do it. And a couple of people said, you know what, just try it. Like Jack, the hitcher, is always one to say, go for it. And so sometimes you have to like get their opinions and be realistic and maybe take a little bit of what people are saying to you into account. But if you're trying something new that people haven't done before, you're going to get a lot of hesitancy from other people in the wedding industry who've been doing it the same for a long time. So definitely speaking to people, but yeah, take it with a grain of salt. And yeah, just also speaking to your couples and offering a few different things and seeing what they're interested in is a really good one because it all comes down to the couple and what they want. And if you're speaking to people and they're like, look, that's not really for me, then maybe it's not really for anyone.
What I want to ask
the harsh
is
reality.
Yeah, you said Jack the Hitcher, right?
Yeah.
You probably asked a whole bunch of people, but you specifically remember her saying something. So why did her advice land on you differently to everybody else?
Well, firstly, I see her as a bit of a mentor. I mean, she's been with me since the beginning. We've worked together and everything she says, I trust because she's killing it. And she's like the ultimate role model for mixing up the wedding industry, shaking things up and making it different. But also most of the other people I spoke to said, I don't think you should do it. And if you do, I think you're going to have to make it more mainstream. You can't just take 50 photos. You're going to have to charge higher. You're going to have to take more photos and you can't just do 2 hours. And so I felt a little bit like, what do I do from here? Okay, I'm just wrong. But then I was like, no, I feel like there's something in this. And yeah, I knew as soon as I spoke to Jack, she would be like, she's just like a safeguard. I know if I bring something up that's a bit risky, she'll be like, you know what? Go for it. Like, just do it.
Well, it's funny because what I was thinking was you asked all these people, right? But they probably didn't have the success that you wanted, haven't done the things that you wanted. But with Jack, right, she's actually done the thing that you actually want. So then it might land on you differently because you're like, yeah, I understand the advice you're giving me, but you've never changed anything. You've never done anything different. You've never experimented. You don't actually know what it's like to put yourself out there. But when someone tells you from experience, it lands on you different, doesn't it?
Definitely. And that is exactly how it was. The people I were asking, telling me not to do it were people who were doing it in a very traditional sense. and weren't willing to change. And maybe they were scared and threatened that people are starting to change the wedding industry, that maybe they'd kind of start to date more and age out or something a little bit if the industry moves too fast. I don't know. I think there's a lot of fear.
Did you ask me?
I don't think I did ask you.
You should have.
Yeah, I should have. What would you have said? Would you have said do it?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, you did ask me about the wedding expo, and you're like, "Do you think I should do this?" And I was like, "Why wouldn't you?"
I have a really good story about that for you, actually. Okay. The wedding expo. So I just moved into my apartment by myself, and I was paying tons of money in rent. And it was the day before my rent was due, and I had, I think, like $80 in my bank account. My rent was like over $1,000, and I was like, what am I going to do? And that day I listened to your podcast where you were speaking about the wedding expo, and when you really needed some cash, and you really wanted to start an expo. And I thought, all right, I might send out an email, see if everyone wants to pay me $100 to be part of this expo. I had no idea what I was doing, no plan. I was just like, hey guys, I'm doing an expo, and made exactly the amount of rent money I needed in that one day, exactly it to cover my rent. It was ridiculous.
It's amazing.
It was like some kind of like cosmic stuff going on, because it was like down to the cent. I mean, I had no more money for food that week, but I paid my rent with the expo. So it was very handy. Well,
next time you set that goal, make sure you include some rent and food money.
Yeah, totally.
No, it's so cool because here's the interesting thing about that. Like, I don't know if you know the story behind how that all came about. I probably told it somewhere, but I just wanted to do something different, stand out, and I wanted to shake up the industry a little bit. Everything was the same. And so I created this thing to sort of, I don't know, like stand out a tiny little bit. But what I thought at the time was like, oh man, everyone's going to copy me and do exactly what I'm doing like after I do this, because like, why wouldn't they, right?
Yeah.
And then no one did.
Yeah.
And I thought, geez, that's so weird. And I thought about it like over and over, like all the time, just going like, why didn't anyone ever see what I just did and then replicate it? Because it was like a great marketing strategy. Then I realized like, not everyone's like a hustler like me. People like to do the bare minimum. Not everyone wants to take action, do something different, do something crazy. And then so when you reached out to me, because I was thinking about it for so long, I wonder who's going to be the person. When you reached out to me and you said, hey, I'm thinking about doing a wedding expo just like how you did it, I was like, holy shit, this is the person. And this is the person that will make it happen. And it kind of just like, it was really funny because it was like as if I was waiting for someone to reach out, and then you were the person that inlined yourself and then made it happen. And I was like, that's amazing.
Totally. How funny is that? I don't know. I don't understand why more people didn't do it. I mean, yeah, maybe it is that people are really busy and not inspired to. It's a lot of work. An expo is so much work.
It's a lot of work. Crazy. And here's the thing, like, and people got to understand, and I say this all the time, like success goes to those that like do what other people are not willing to do, right? So if you're willing to do a little bit extra work, and what I've realized over the years is it's like when people say like the 1%, I say like the 99%, and I say like the 99% of people always do bare minimum. So if they could pay for a directory listing, that's what they'll do. Sure. If they could just go to someone else's expo, that's what they'll do. And they will never take it upon themselves to actually take on some risk and do something a little bit different.
That's what it is. I think it's the risk. I think people are really terrified of the risk and what could happen and what could go wrong. And I mean, I had no expo experience. I've been in the industry for like about 6 months at that point. Like, it was very new. I think everyone was like, who is this chick trying to run a wedding expo? And she doesn't even know the industry. But it somehow worked out for me. So I am very pro risk taking. I think do it as much as you can. Such a good learning experience.
Love that. So it has sort of the cool thing, like the people that don't know about this is what's amazing about it, right? You've niched down. You've got this tiny little market, and so what people do is they get scared because they're like, well, I don't know if my client's going to find me. Like, I don't know what to do. Then what you did is you went step 2. Okay, I got a small niche. Now all I need to do is find the right people that love what I do and get them to me. And then you went proactive, and then you surrounded yourself with like-minded vendors with the same kind of clients. And then you bring everyone into the same room.
For sure.
And then all of a sudden you've attracted those people. And this is what people forget. And this blows my mind. As wedding photographers, we only need to book like 30 weddings. Maybe some of us are ambitious, want to book 50 weddings. So if you had a wedding expo and 1,000 people came, You only need to book like 30 people that whole year. Is it really risky? Like, I don't think it is.
Yeah. I don't think, I mean, I think it feels like it is when you're starting out and you don't really know how to do anything. You don't know the formula for finding clients. I think the wedding industry, personally, I found an industry that's easier to break into than other art industries, art related, photography related industries. But it really does, hey, it comes down to the vendors, you know, and that has been such I mean, I was never thinking about doing wedding photography until Jack hired me for her shoot when she was first starting to become a celebrant, and was like, look, you have to do this with me. I'm doing it. I'm not doing it alone. Let's do alt weddings and see what happens. And then so much of my work has come through her and just through meeting other people. And another really good tip of advice that has been so helpful for me is in my first year, each week, I would find a new vendor who I thought was really cool and probably knew a lot more than I did, and asked to take them to coffee. And then I just asked them so many questions. And after that, not only do you learn so much from them, but they'll start referring you for bookings that are, and if you're niche, then they probably already have a lot of friends in the industry, right? But they might have a client who's looking for something specific and they're having a tiny little elopement, and they're not going to think of anyone else because that's exactly what you're doing. So you kind of have a little gap there where all these other people who've been doing it for a lot longer, who know everyone, they're not going to get booked for that because this is your specific thing. It's like, it's the same with everything. I mean, I was just laughing the other day with one of my friends about, and this is probably a terrible analogy, but I bought this soap for my sink, and it's not only a hand soap, but it's a dishwashing detergent. And I was like, this is a terrible marketing thing. I mean, I don't want something that does two things because it means it does none of them well. And it's the same with the wedding industry. Like, if you're doing everything generally, no one's ever going to think this is the exact wedding photographer that we need, or I should refer this exact person because they're doing this, they're fully specialized in something. So I'm just very pro niche. I think it really can't go wrong most of the time if you pick a good niche or niche.
Oh yeah, like the more that you niche, the easier it is to identify your clients, the easier it is to raise your prices, make a lot more money, like things like that. And here's a good little story that I told just a little while ago. But Lilu, my wife, said to me the other day, like, hey, there's this hairdresser I'm thinking about booking into. They only specialize in blonde hair.
Yeah.
And so when she told me that, she's like, I'm going to go book in. And I said, well, can you even book in? I bet you they're too busy. She's like, what do you mean? I was like, I bet you won't be able to. Yeah. And so she contacted them. They're like, oh yeah, no, we're 6 months ahead booked.
Yeah.
And Lila's like, how do you know that? I was like, because they're niche. And if they're niche,
totally,
people with blonde hair know they need to go to them for the best perms, for the best conditioner, for the best dyeing, for the best like cuts, like whatever it is. They are the people for it, and they can charge more for it.
Yeah. And how much easier is it to rank on Google if you're just putting in blonde all the time rather than people are searching hairdresser? If someone searches blonde hairdresser, you have that. You're the only one who's doing it.
And then when they land on their website, they're like, oh my God, this is exactly the person. And here's another one. I've got a friend and she has curly hair, and she goes to the person that only specializes in curly hair.
I was going to say this. I know that place because I've been trying to get in for years. Like, that place is crazy busy.
Booked out.
Yeah, totally.
So I always think like how funny like all that craziness is.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a secret?
I would love to hear a secret.
The funny thing is about this secret is I don't actually remember what it is because I wrote it in front of me and I was like, I've got a secret and I need to tell you the secret. Then I'm like, oh, where's the secret? Why didn't I actually write down what the secret is?
No, why didn't you do that? You're too busy.
Word secret.
Your brain's just all over.
Yeah.
So
brain's going all over the place.
Yeah. It's 4 o'clock as well. Need a glass of wine.
It is 4 o'clock. And it's my birthday tomorrow as well.
Is it really? Happy birthday, Eve.
Yeah. I remember the secret now.
What's the secret?
Here's something really funny. Yeah. Hey, like we've met before, right?
For sure.
I would consider you one of my friends.
Yeah.
So I remember a little while ago, I was running this workshop for photographers.
Yeah.
And I actually had a few, I don't know where they came from, but I had a few haters. And these haters wanted to dismiss me because they were saying, Jai is not a great photographer. He's not a great educator or anything. It's who he knows, right?
Yeah.
Because he knows people in the industry. He knows people. That's why he's successful. And what was interesting is, from my perspective, I was like, you know what? You're correct. I have friends.
Yeah.
And you know what's even funnier about it? While you're criticizing me, you're missing the point. go make friends in the industry. Go
Totally.
make friends with other vendors. Go and network. Go make friends. Go take people to coffee. Go ask someone, bring value to someone somewhere, somehow. And yeah, I'm not surprised that, of course, like I've got a lot of my success because I have a lot of friends, because I bring a lot of happiness to a lot of people and they want to be
Yeah.
around me. There's no secret there, right? But it's funny how like some people miss that point. And so you just gave that bombshell of like, go out there. I met with people that were better, smarter, crazier, talented,
Yeah.
more talented than I am. And I picked their brains. And from there, we actually formed a relationship. And I did the exact same thing. And of course, from that, yeah, made friends.
That's what it is. There's so much of being good in business is just actually having the courage to ask people to meet you. And people will, especially in the wedding industry. I feel like people are so open and willing to tell you things because there is so much. And the people who've gotten to this point of success where you're asking them to go for coffee, they don't have the scarcity mindset. They have the abundance mindset, and they know there's tons of work for everyone. And they want nothing but to help everyone else. So yeah, I don't know why anyone would hate on anyone for having lots of friends in the industry and that being a success. Like, yes, that is how you become successful.
I know. It's like there's no secret there. I'm telling
That's
you.
hilarious.
Right now,
Wow. They just couldn't find anything else to be. Yeah, literally. Yeah. That's so funny.
Yeah.
I think I actually intentionally, when I was coming into the industry, there were certain people I really wanted to meet who I knew of and I followed, and you were one of them. And I think Ollie and some other people. And then I just started intentionally rocking up a little bit stalker to events where I knew that they would be so that I could meet them, because there's so many really accomplished, interesting people in the industry, and they don't have time to just like, you're just going to have to bump into them at some point and ask them, like that's the only way to do it. I don't know.
I love that. You're literally making your own opportunities, right? And so even like it's such a small little mindset shift, but it's like you're just in the right place at the right time. Were you? Hey, it might have been an accident, but chances are it wasn't.
It was definitely
planned.
It's
funny because yeah, it's definitely planned. And so a lot of people don't think about that. And so they're in their lounge room right now and they're like, how do I meet people though?
Yeah.
But it's like, hey man, it's not in your lounge room. You need to get out into the world, go meet these people, because the successful people, they're not in their lounge room. They're out there somewhere doing something, meeting someone, networking somehow, creating content, doing something. You know what I mean?
It is so daunting at the start, but I think once you just meet one person who's nice to you and tells you things, and then you can just kind of hang out with them, just tag along, and you'll just keep meeting people. And it's really, really easy to do once you get started. I think you just have to push yourself to actually find out about what's going on and go and meet people. Or even if there's no events, because when you're starting it, I mean, the wedding industry is great for having networking events and everyone's very social. You don't get invited to those with stacks. No one knows who you are. So that's why I think you should just be taking people out for coffee. And even if you just meet 5 people in the industry who are great, you'll meet so many people from those people because it's so connected, such a connected scene.
What's interesting is like I've been on both sides. So I've been at events where someone's trying to come and meet me, or at the dog park. I've got someone that meets me at the dog park.
Yeah.
And I've been to events where I'm trying to meet people, right?
Yeah.
And so what's interesting is when you're the person trying to go to events to meet people, it's like sometimes you have this idea of someone that maybe they're famous, maybe they're well off, maybe they don't want to talk to me, maybe I'm not good enough, all these things in their heads. But what I realized is, especially when I got to the position where people are trying to meet me, it's like, hey man, I'm just like a normal person, but I'm trying to attract and hang out with people that are high frequency movers, that are like doing things, like things are fun. But hey, guess what? No one really reaches out to me ever, because they're like, oh no, he's busy, he's famous, he's got a podcast, or like whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so it blows my mind that I'm like, why did all these people put these crazy limiting beliefs on themselves, and they don't get out and go and meet these people that are just human, just like them?
Absolutely. That's such a good insight though, of starting off as one of those people who, and even where you are trying to meet these people who are maybe more famous and doing more, like the fact that you got Gary Vee on your workshop is amazing. But yeah, it's so interesting that you can get to that point and you're still doing that for the next person. And it's just such a flip. It just shows you that no, actually these people aren't sitting there thinking I'm so famous and I'm so successful that I'm not going to talk to anyone below me. Like, they're looking to do that too.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I think I kind of put it down towards like we admire someone because of their courage usually, and we know that in their talent and things like that. But I do put it down to like, you're trying to move yourself towards a more like-minded person.
Yeah.
So for yourself, right, it's like you are trying to get out of your comfort zone. So you're already more like-minded to those people that are out of their comfort zone right now, and they're networking, they're talking, they're in an event. You want to get into that event so you can talk to those people, but really, like, you are a high frequency mover, just like they are. You've got projects going on, you've got ideas, you've got creativity, you've got things happening. And you know that if you get into that room with them, then they're going to harbor that creativity with you, and they're going to help you, and you can brainstorm, and they got connections, and there's other things, but they're looking for the exact same thing. And that's why they are there.
Absolutely.
So I think it's really cool when you think about it like that.
Yeah, it really all just comes down to asking for it. Hey, I've learned this so much lately. Every time I've had a little success or a little win in my career, whether it's wedding related or just photography related, and I feel so shocked when people say to me, how did that happen? So an example is I recently got an exhibition with Ballarat International Photo Biennale. And I've had so many people say to me, how did that happen? Like, you're so new in the industry, you know, how did this happen? And I literally just sent an email and said, I'd like to exhibit. Like, that's it. How are all these people who have been like killing it and are so successful just like, literally, it was just like, hi, please include me in your exhibition. That's all you have to do. You just ask for it and things will happen. But you have to get out there, and you have to be shameless enough to be asking for things. And sometimes you might be the annoying person who's constantly spamming someone's, I mean, don't do it too much, but they're the people who are successful and who good things happen to, are the people who just put out there what they want. I mean, it's almost kind of like manifestation, except you're directly doing it.
Manifestation with action. And like, guys, take action out there. I'm telling you right now, take action and go make your own break. That's what it's all about. That's what Em's saying here. That's what I've been sitting here for years saying, make your own break, go do it. That's
all of it. That's 100% of it. That's the secret.
Hey, Em, so good talking to you today. Where can we find you on social media?
So my Instagram is at @mjensenweddings, and my website is mjensenweddings.com.
And do you want to leave us with any parting words before you get out of here?
Just go for it. Niche down, take the risk. Now is the best time, really, because the wedding industry is going to flip after all of this lockdown stuff. So if you're thinking about doing it, just put yourself out there and do it, and send a message to people like Jai and me and anyone in the industry, and buy us a coffee and ask us questions, and we'll tell you. People are willing to share. Just put yourself out there.
I love it. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thanks so much, Jai. Bye.